Today, I'm discussing what I'm seeing as a concern in both the Republican and Libertarian Party. Why are we pushing a pro-Russia, pro-Putin message out and supporting Russia instead of Ukraine? That's what I want to talk about today, what's really going on in the Libertarian and Republican Party, and I'd really appreciate open-minded people leaving me some comments on your thoughts because there is a divide in both the Libertarian and Republican Party right now on this. Let's get into it, Libertarians. If you've been following the Libertarian Party, you know that there is a major faction war in the LP right now between the Mises caucus and the rest of the Libertarians. Well, there is also some factional fighting going on in the Republican Party. So this is creating a lot of problems for both the Libertarians and Republicans. But aside from the war between the Mises and non-Mises, we have a couple of other things fueling the divide, and those two factors are COVID, how we handle COVID, and Ukraine. So when COVID started to affect us all, a lot of Libertarians had to question themselves on how, if they really aligned with libertarianism, should we take a hands-off approach? Should the government really do nothing when millions of people's lives could be at stake? This ideological divide is part of what sparked division in the Libertarian Party, because there were many of us who felt it was prudent to wear a mask and prudent to get vaccinated, and they really struggled with both how the government should handle it and why more libertarians didn't think getting vaccinated was a good idea. So some of this conflict is what's fueled the divide in the Libertarian Party, but it's also what's brought some new growth into the Libertarian Party. And because the Libertarian Party is one of the few parties who have taken a strong stance against vaccine mandates and business shutdowns and the massive amounts of money we spent during COVID, we've attracted a lot of Republicans into our party. So it's not surprising that Libertarians and Republicans are sharing some similar talking points when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. Most of this pro-Putin messaging that you're hearing about from Libertarians comes directly from controversial Libertarian Ron Paul. Now, many people in the Libertarian Party will tell you that Ron Paul is the father of libertarianism, and you'd probably hear the same thing from people outside of our political party. However, there is a growing force within the Libertarian Party that does not support Ron Paul and finds his influence on the party a problem. Ron Paul is a major source of the disinformation you're hearing from libertarians regarding Russia and Ukraine. He says that we've spent millions of dollars promoting anti-Russian messaging. He says that the U.S. helped to overthrow former President Viktor Yanukovych so that we could put in its place our own hand-picked successor, Volodymyr Zelensky. So this is where, at least in the libertarian circles, most of the anti-Ukraine, anti-Zelensky messaging you're hearing is coming from. And any of us libertarians who challenge this get called regime libertarians or warmongers or neocons. And I'm here to challenge that. I am not a regime libertarian or a neocon, but I have some serious concerns about Ron Paul. Ron Paul is not the only one pushing these pro-Putin talking points. I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that extreme MAGA Republicans are doing the same. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene have been extremely critical of NATO and blamed them for the escalation in Ukraine, and have said things like NATO has been supplying the insert word I won't say, in Ukraine with powerful weapons and extensive training on how to use them. What the hell is going on with these NATO, word that ends in Z's? And there are other pro-Putin Republicans like Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona that claim that none of this is Putin's fault. Now, the Republicans are not as divided as libertarians. I think most of them support Ukraine. Where they have division in the Republican Party isn't over Russia versus Ukraine. It's over whether or not we should continue funding Ukraine. As libertarians, we should be having common sense discussions instead of promoting pro-Putin propaganda. We should all know by now that when the United States gets involved in another country's conflict, it generally results in an endless loop of problems for America. We should also know by now that the United States cannot be the entire world's army or hold back communism all on our own. But we should also be deeply concerned about the amount of pro-Putin propaganda coming out of our very own political leaders' mouths and spreading across our social media platforms. Time magazine recently published a story on this that I hope you will read. I've included a link to that in my blog post that you can find in the description, or you can do a search for it. It's titled "The Real Winners of the 2024 Election Could Be China and Russia." And I'm going to read a quick quote from that, and hopefully you will listen and think about it. So it said, "Both adversaries are fighting a new kind of war, one that doesn't rely on traditional weapons. Instead, it seeks to defeat its adversaries, like the United States, from the inside rather than the outside." Republicans and libertarians right now seem to be aligned on just one thing: destroying the Democrats. And instead, they are destroying their own political parties. We are not as divided as Russia and China would lead you to believe, and we can support Ukraine without starting World War III or using the threat of nuclear war to manipulate voters. We do this by having better discussions, but we also do this by improving our own economy, by strengthening our own military, and by stopping the spread of Putin propaganda across our social media platforms and in our political parties. If you get what I'm saying and see what I'm saying, please click the like button and support Patty for Liberty and subscribe to my channel. But I could also use a little more support if you are able to. I am not out to pander to libertarians, but I am out to blow this channel up and spread this message to as many people as possible. I can do a lot with a little. So if you are able to, I have left a link to my Patreon account where you can become a patron and help me with just a tiny little donation. I appreciate all you guys who are supporting me. I will have more content coming up later this week. Thanks so much for your endless support. I'm Patty from Patty for Liberty, and thanks, guys.